Hello Year 10. We're going to look at the glaciated landscapes in the UK topic, a bit of a revision topic for us over the coming weeks. We're going to look at landscapes such as the one in the image here of a glacial trough and how that forms. And we're going to be able to talk about how humans can benefit from glaciated landscapes and how they give economic opportunities. But first of all, we're going to have a look at what an ice age is, how glaciers develop, and the glacial processes in today's tutorial. So we're going to have a look at the Earth's climate over the past 450,000 years. Now I might ask, what is an ice age? Well, an ice age is a period of cold, a period when ice sheets form and glaciers form, and then glaciers shape the land. So if you have a look at the graph here, we go in and out of the glacial periods and interglacial periods. Now, an interglacial period is a period of warm, when a climate is like it is today, and a glacial period is when we're in a period of cold, where we've got forming of ice sheets and glaciers. So if you can look over the thousands of years of the Earth's climate, we go in and out of glacial and interglacial periods. Now, currently we're in an interglacial period where we just have 10% of ice covering the Earth, or 10% of glaciers covering the Earth. And they can be found at Arctic, Antarctic, and high up in the mountains such as the Alps and Himalayas. And then we go through glacial periods like 30,000 years ago was the last ice age, and it ended 10,000 years ago. And we're going to have a look at that on the next slide. So the last ice age that started 30,000 years ago, covered quite a lot of the Earth's surface. I think it covered around 30% of the Earth's surface. And the last ice age reached its peak 18,000 years ago, and then has started obviously retreating since we've come into an interglacial period. Now, if we have a look at the images here, we've got the Scandinavian ice sheet coming down from Scandinavia and Norway, and it covering the UK. As you can see, it covered the whole of Scotland, most of Ireland, Wales, and most of northern England, where we have our glaciated upland areas, and we can see glaciation taking form in these areas, and we can see how they've shaped and formed those mountainous areas. And if you look at the other image here, you can see all the ice sheets spreading down from the Arctic, covering the northern hemisphere in the last ice age. So that's what an ice age is, and it started 30,000 years ago and ended 10,000 years ago. So how do glaciers form? Well, glaciers form high up in upland areas, high up on the mountainside, where the accumulation of snow is greater than the ablation or melting of snow, and it starts to collect and form, as we'll be able to talk about in the next few weeks' time when we talk about corries. The accumulation of snow builds up and then compacts and turns into ice, and that starts to flow down the mountain. And we have what we call an accumulation zone, where we get lots of snow. So in an ice age, when the period of climate is cold, we're going to get a lot of snow forming and adding to those glaciers, and then they're going to grow. Whereas when we start to become into an interglacial periods, that's not an ice age, the zone of ablation will increase, and you'll have more carving and more outputs of meltwater lower down on the glacier, and then it'll start to retreat back up the mountainside. So what this is called here in this image is a glacial budget, where you've got zones of accumulation, zones of ablation. Now when accumulation is higher, probably in an ice age, the glacier is going to grow. When the zone of ablation is higher, probably in an interglacial period, the glacier is going to shrink and retreat. So this is about how glaciers form and what glaciers do. So when glaciers are moving down the valley or the mountainside, processes are occurring. And they're occurring straight off from the start of a glacier forming, and they shape the land. These are called glacial processes or erosional processes. Now, first of all, we have abrasion, as you can see in the image here. Abrasion is where the angular rocks are scouring and scraping away at the valley floor, deepening the valley or deepening the hollow of a quarry. And that's abrasion, and it's a bit like a sandpaper effect. And from the scratching and scraping of the rocks on the valley floor, it leaves scratch marks, and you can see that in evidence in glaciated upland areas, and they're known as striations. And they make valley floors very flat and very smooth from abrasion. Plucking, on the other hand, is when the ice freezes onto rocks, and then when the glacier starts to move, it pulls the rocks apart, or pulls the rocks off once it's frozen onto them, and it makes those valley sides or back of a quarry very jagged and steepens the sides. So this is why you have large U-shaped valleys, because of plucking steepening the sides and abrasion making the valley floor very flat. So plucking sticks to rocks, the ice sticks to rocks and pulls them off when the glacier starts moving by, and makes it very jagged. So you can see evidence of rocks that have had abrasion, one side smoothing it and then plucking the other side, making it sharper. Now, an example of this is a roche metonne. You might want to have a research and have a look at what one of those is. So other glacial processes that shape the land and also a part of glaciation are these two here. So we've got freeze-thaw weathering. Now, water collects in hollows in the daytime, it's melted due to the sun, and then at night it freezes, and when it freezes it expands by 9%, and when it expands by 9% it's going to make that crack slightly bigger, and a repeat process of this, melting water during the daytime and freezing during the night, or in an ice age, it expands a bit further by 9%, a bit more, and eventually it'll break the rock off, and that'll drop down onto the glacier, and this is known as scree, or moraines dropping down onto the glaciers. So this is freeze-thaw weathering. They happen high up on the valley side or high up above on the steep back wall of quarries. And also, when a glacier is moving downhill, it's going to push sediment forwards, okay? And that's known as bulldozing. Bulldozing is pushing of deep deposited sediment at the glacial snout, and it's pushing it forwards down the valley side. And sometimes bulldozing clears out the valleys and helps form that U-shaped valley. Thank you for listening to this tutorial, Year 10, and now it's time to have a go at the glaciation quiz. Make sure you fill in your full name so we can see that you're doing the quiz, and then complete the worksheet. Be careful and have a look. The questions can be found at the bottom of the sheet, and then you answer them in your textbook or on paper, take a picture and send to your geography teacher. Keep up the great work, Year 10. I'll see you soon.